Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. A busy Monday afternoon for us Michigan fans. Sherrone Moore takes the press conference stand, not only naming Bryce Underwood quarterback one, which was like the worst kept surprise in the world. Dill, to a lot of Michigan fans that follow this program closely, it was the other stuff that Sherrone Moore mentioned that's getting the boys going a little bit. There are some names that have emerged in fall camp to be starters for this Michigan team going into New Mexico that I'll be straight up weren't on my bingo card going into 2025. Want to talk about some of those names that have generated buzz in fall camp, guys that seemingly put a stamp on what they're going to mean to Michigan going into 2025. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the Michigan fans, appreciate you guys. Dill, this feels like a culmination of a lot of conversation over the last couple of months, breaking down position battles, talking about this depth chart. To the Michigan fans who've been rocking with the boys all summer long, can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, before we move on from the quarterback spot, Bryce Underwood quarterback one, Jaden Davis taking the step quarterback two. I think another intriguing little nugget was Jasper Parker as a freshman. Sounds like he's got a good chance to be that running back three. Now, I think there's a gap. Jordan Marshall, Justice Haynes, gap Jasper Parker. I think we got a guy in that run. Now, it's going to be tough for him because he got Savion Hyder coming in 2026, but I think we got a guy in Jasper Parker. Now, the big storyline here, probably the biggest one that Sherrone Moore shared, maybe the second biggest. Channing Goodwin, wide receiver three. I think we all, I say wide receiver three as when Sherrone Moore was breaking down the top wide receivers in the room, he went Don McCulley, then he went Samaj Morgan, which I don't think's all that much of a surprise. I think we were kind of on the same page there too. Now number three, Channing Goodwin, was certainly a little bit of a curveball for the boys. Dill, Channing Goodwin seemingly taking that last wide receiver starting spot going into 2025. How are we feeling about it?
And I don't think you mind hearing it because you knew what Freddie Moore was. I do
Yeah.
think hearing Channing Goodwin beat him out gives you a chance to elevate that room a little bit, which is not a bad thing. I think the biggest thing is it gives you a little bit more size. Like Channing Goodwin, maybe not the tallest player in the
Thick.
world, but built like a big,
Yeah.
solid wide receiver. And I think when you're playing out on the boundary, it certainly doesn't hurt to have a little bit more size and physicality. So that's probably the big difference between him and Freddie Moore as I see it now. Just a bigger physical.
Dill, what I love is the skill set that Channing Goodwin brings. Look, is the size, speed profile out of this world for this kid? No. Like, this is the same way we talked about him coming out of high school. He's not going to wow you with being 6'5" and running 10.5 in the 100-meter dash. What I loved about him, well, he's kind of a technician at the wide receiver position. Like, I know how to run my routes, and I know how to create separation, and I love the fit that he provides in this trio of wide receivers. Like Donovan McCulley, 6'5", 210. I'm working vertically down the field. Samaj Morgan, a little bit shorter, slot wide receiver, electric factory with the football in his hands. Kind of wanted an intermediate possession pass catcher. That's what I think Channing Goodwin is. And Dill, going back to the conversation that we had yesterday was, how can we make Bryce Underwood's life easy early? Well, having a wide receiver that knows how to separate, he ain't going to make those crazy highlight reel plays, but having a guy that's going to routinely separate and create some easy throws for Bryce, I think that's big. And Dill, I go back to the spring game. Like, who was one of Bryce Underwood's guys in that spring game? It was Jalen Hoffman and it was Channing Goodwin. So that camaraderie, that chemistry is probably the better word. That chemistry is there with those two. The other name, Andrew Marsh. What stunned me the most was starting kick returner as a freshman, which Dill to me speaks to the confidence that they have in this freshman, not only to handle the kick return duties, but also get on the football field as a wide receiver. Dill, I think eventually he will emerge as, I'll just go out and say, I think he'll emerge as a starting wide receiver at some point during 2025. What fires you up the most about Andrew Marsh going into 2025 as a guy that's going to play for Michigan early?
Yeah, sounding like another guy who can make plays with the ball in his hand because, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Michigan couldn't really do that a whole lot last year. And I think you wonder, like, does Channing Goodwin or Freddie Moore, do
Sure.
they have that juice as ball carriers? Let's say again, it's like you might think they're solid wide receivers. but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I have a ton of confidence that they're going to be electric with the ball a little bit. And I think you do see some of these like real premier wide receiver rooms. Most guys, when they have the ball in their hands, are
And
pretty effective. And I think Samaj can do it a little bit. Andrew Marsh being that guy as well, I think would add a new dimension to the offense.
especially in the Chip Lindsey offense. And I think you're dead on. Like there aren't a ton of guys that I think would scare you outside of Samaj Morgan with the ball in your hands. So like Andrew Marsh being that guy intrigues me. And in that Chip Lindsey offense where it's speed and space, we gonna get the football to where I don't mean speed and space like Josh Gaddis. Josh Gaddis ruined the speed and space term for me. But in an offense where Chip Lindsey does a nice job, actually does it, gets the football to his playmakers in space, having guys that can make people miss and make plays for you, gonna be big. I love what I'm hearing about Andrew Marsh. Let's go to probably the second biggest storyline here. Brady Norton coming out of fall camp. Sounds like he won that right guard job, which was kind of the last remaining position battle we had. In the what it sounds like is this wasn't like a native phobia fell off. This was like a Brady Norton came on big in the late stages of fall camp. Now, I think that position battle will continue to go on into 2025. But to hear Brady Norton taking that step from the FCS to Big Ten college, again, working against some legitimate defensive linemen in fall camp, it's another body that Michigan trusts up front. And Dill, here's the thing I'll say about Brady Norton. Sorry for being a little long with this. I think it just means they wanted him on the field. I think this kid can play tackle. Unfortunately, I don't think he was going to start over Andrew Sprague at tackle. We had to figure out how to get him on the field. I had my question marks about moving him to guard, but beating out Afobe, beating out Lawrence Attar kind of melts away my concerns about what Brady Norton can be at guard for Michigan in
Well,
2025.
and you'll still need to see, like, is the play strength and the power there? Because
Yeah,
that's still going to be the question. I mean, he is a really good athlete, and no doubt it's going to help this pass protection a little bit. Because
yes,
that was something like when your guards are all kind of like a little bit slower, stodgier players, and that's probably an okay way to define like a Geo or a Greg Crippen. Like those are
sure.
more people movers. It's not a bad thing to have a little bit more athleticism on this offensive line,
Yep.
and Brady Norton certainly gives you that. Again, it'll be interesting to kind of
Yeah.
watch when they go play Oklahoma. Can he go move a Dominic Williams or
Yep.
Jaden Jackson?
I
That's
agree.
probably
The play strength, the physicality is the question for Brady. I don't think he would have won the starting guard spot if he lacked it to a significant extent. And here's the thing that fires me up about Brady Norton. This dude's an athlete, man, like super light on his feet. And then this Chip Lindsey offense where, yes, we'll be throwing the football more, but there'll be a little bit more dynamism and the rushing attack. Hey, climb into the second level and picking up backers. You'll see a lot of screens in this offense, like Brady Norton getting out in space, putting a hat on a hat, pulling play side. Having that athleticism at guard wasn't super important to the Sherrone Moore offense because it was just we gonna move bodies off the line of scrimmage. I think it's gonna be important in the Chip Lindsey offense, and that might even be a reason that he won the job was the athleticism he brings to that guard spot. The other name, Blake Frazier, man, really big, and I know he's not going to start, but having another tackle, especially with Babs, when Babs went down, it's like, all right, well, who's that third tackle? It sounds like it's going to be Blake Frazier, which I think is important. Ideally, he doesn't need to play because Evan Link plays well and Andrew Sprague plays well and they stay healthy. But if you need to trot him out for a game or a drive, it sounds like we got a third tackle that we trust. And Dill, that's big because I'll say this. A lot of teams in fall camp that I don't even think have two tackles they trust. And it sounds like Michigan has three at the least. Big story. I'm going to give you the T-box here, Dill. Trey Pierce season. And it's the Trinity, man, right? You're hearing it. You're hearing it from the inside sources, whoever they might be. You're hearing it from the players when they're talking to the media. And you heard it from the big man up top, Sherrone Moore, right? Sherrone Moore personally shouting out Trey Pierce and the step he's taken this offseason. We felt like he was coming on in 2024. We kind of identified him as a guy that can take a big step in 2025. And gosh darn it, it sounds like he might have.
and he has shown that like kind of power that I think Michigan like. Do you
He's a
get that from a
bulldog.
Damon Payne or Trey Williams? Like that's I think you kind of know what those two guys are, and they're good, solid like power five or power four now defensive tackles. But they don't give you that like real impact play. Like Trey Pierce, like there were some moments where you saw him, I mean, move a guy like
T-Buck, and
Devin
yeah,
Booker was like in that Alabama game where he was able to get into him and like be physical with him in a way that reminded you more of like that top end defensive tackle play, which again, Michigan clearly needs that. And I know we've been talking a ton about depth, and I know Michigan's deeper, but you still need a couple guys to go out there and be monsters.
yeah,
And
we
I
we
think Trey
needed
Pierce to me
we
is the guy.
needed guys to take that step and become all conference guys, right? It's one thing to be deep. You still need game records. Like those guys are still important. It doesn't have to be exactly like Mason Graham. In fact, it probably won't be like Mason Graham. You still need guys who can take over and be presences on the inside. We know Rayshon Benny can. Trey Pierce, Trey Williams. It sounds like we got a couple more, and then we'll continue to just keep Ed in the back pocket. We'll see what that looks like.
Well, because he came
What?
out and said they got 5 or 6 guys. I presume you know who the top 4 are, let's say.
Yeah,
I'm imagining Ike is kind of 5 because Ike, you know what you have with him. He's a guy I don't worry about on the field. Like, yeah, he's not going to make a ton of plays for you
yeah,
necessarily.
he'll do the dirty work.
If Enoetta is number 6, that's fine because Enoetta being a guy they can depend on, he is a ceiling
Well,
raiser.
here's the yes, but I kind of I want it to be more than just we can depend on Ed. I want it to be like Ed can take
Well,
over
it's
some
like if
games.
you can depend on him, I think he's going to be impactful because like you've seen the moments. It's just like you've also seen a lot of really bad. Like, ooh, he's
Yeah,
not holding up against double
yeah.
teams and he's not giving you a good rep.
It looks better, man. Like he had to gain so much weight so quickly, and keep in mind he was new to the sport as a high school kid, just kind of a freaky athlete. The weight on him, I know he was quote unquote big enough last year, but you could tell that like the physicality wasn't quite there. We'll see what the step looks like. And here's another guy to put in the back pocket right quick, Nate Marshall. The it's loud, the buzz is loud. And again, he was not a guy that was here for winter and spring. So he was a summer enrollee, really only at fall camp. It sounds like he's making plays. It sounds like he's kind of we knew he was a freaky dude coming out of high school. The thing that stands out to me is can we get him ready for sometime in the middle of the year? Like, and it doesn't have to be an all down guy. Like you have your all down guys, Cam Brandt, Dom Nichols, Derek Moore, TJ Guy, third and long situations. Trot out a fresh Nate Marshall, who's a freaking NASCAR coming off the edge in terms of first step and length. Fire me up for that. Linebacker room, I don't think we got to talk about much, right? I mean, you got 4 guys you love. Jay-Sean Barr, Ernest Hausman going to be your starting backers. Jimmy Rolder, Cole Sullivan, they going to play. Freshman cornerbacks pushing. Now, Dill, here's what fires me up about this. It gives us the flexibility that I think Michigan wants in the secondary, right? Zeke Berry, can he play nickel for you? Will he stay out on the boundary? I think that has a lot to do with not only what Zeke Berry is as a boundary cornerback, but I think it has a lot to do with, well, if we want to move Zeke Berry to nickel, which I think might be his best position, I got to trust Shamari Earls, or I got to trust Jaden Sanders. I got to trust Elijah Dotson. Well, Dill, sounds like all 3 of those cornerbacks could be guys that Michigan can rely on in 2025, which gives you the flexibility that, hey, if you want to move Jair Hill to, or excuse me, not Jair Hill, if you want to move Zeke Berry to nickel, you have some guys that can play the boundary cornerback spot, which I think is big for Michigan going into 2025.
I don't mind hearing about the freshman, but you may have buried the lead a little bit with the way we're talking about Jair Hill now because
Yeah,
Jair
fair
Hill
enough.
is like
Yeah,
him coming into like that number 1 guy and being like a guy that Sherrone Moore talks about the way he was, where it made me
yeah,
feel like, oh, like what do we have our next Will Johnson, like a real shutdown
yeah,
monster out there on the boundary? That's an exciting thing because
yeah,
you saw it last year. I thought he had a really good year kind of stepping in for Will Johnson after the injury.
yeah.
Him taking that step and being a real dynamic, yeah, you're shut
That
down.
true
I think
cornerback
that
one.
changes how your defense operates because Michigan with a real shutdown cornerback, like that changed a lot of things. I'd say.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And again, you look at some of the bigger games on Michigan's schedule, like that, having that guy that can erase a wide receiver one's freaking important. And it sounds like Jair Hill could be that guy. Last one, secondary versatility. This can. I don't think I spelled versatility. That don't look right. Regardless of that, my
It's
spelling,
gross.
it's not even close. All right, back on track. The secondary versatility. What fires me up about it is that you got TJ Metcalf, Brandon Hillman, and Mason Curtis that sound like they're all guys that Michigan really likes, and they're all going to play. What fires me up the most about it is look at the Big Ten, though. You're going to see so many different offenses on a week-to-week basis, right? You're playing Nebraska week 4. Maybe Nebraska's going a little bit more 12 personnel and trying to run the football. Well, I don't know if we'll do it to be that, but if they are, like Mason Curtis has nickel, right? Like he was recruited out of high school to play linebacker. And so it's like you got a guy that can fit the run at the nickel position. All right, we're playing Ohio State at the end of the year. Team that's soft, don't want to run the football. TJ Metcalf coming up to playing the nickel spot. Having the versatility, and Sherrone Moore said this, like having different guys to play in different situations, we feel like we have that specifically in the Big Ten with all the different offenses that you'll see on a week-to-week basis. Feels really important for this Michigan defense.
Mason Curtis is the intriguing one. I am so interested to see what he does because I would have thought for sure they'd kind of keep him back there as like a deep safety because frankly, I think when you're that tall and that like big, honestly, I feel like it is hard to play that nickel at a really high level, but it's sounding like he can kind of do it. That's
Unicorn.
really, really interesting because
Yeah.
again, it's a unique body around the line of scrimmage is like that kind of
Yeah,
that
and
type of
I can't wait to see what it looks like when Rod Moore gets back healthy. I don't have Rod Moore in the starting lineup because I don't know if we'll see him right away. And even Jaden Mangum can be like a little ball hawking safety. I think will be able to play for Michigan too. It's not only depth, it's versatility. It's guys that can do different things, and I think Wink Martindale, Lamar Morgan really value that.
I also love the idea of Hillman playing a lot because Hillman is ungodly fun to watch. I mean,
He's
he
so fun.
flies around, he's nuts, he hits people, he's
Yeah.
like the energy he brings, like just
Yes.
everything about the way he plays, I find very, very
100%. Absolute blast to watch play football. Plays it the right way. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.